me Jake. My Korean name is Cheoljun Kim. It sounds a bit difficult, so just call me Jake. And I've been married for 14 years. I'm so sure that some of you married longer than me. But anyway, I'm not so sure if I'm worthy to share about marriage life and family. But then, I'm gonna share a little bit about my stories and story from Bibles. And I don't know where to start really. So this is like a family kind of course. You guys are running here. Okay. I'm gonna ask you a question, right? And you can answer me. I mean, these are easy questions. If you know Bible, you will easily find the answer. Tell me the family names. Like, whose family is this? I'm gonna tell you a few stories about this family, and you can tell me the name of the father of this family actually. So it's like in this family, like a son sleeps with his father's concubine. Anybody?
Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob's family. And in this family, a brother tries to kill brothers.
Esau and Jacob?
Brother tried to kill his own brother. Esau and Jacob. It's Isaac's family, right? And father kick out his son out from his own family. Father kicks out his son from his family. Abraham kicks out Ishmael from his family, right? And brothers sold his younger brother as slaves. Joseph. So Joseph's brothers sold Joseph as slaves. And more things, a son deceives his father. Jacob deceiving Isaac, right? Can you imagine all these things happen in Abraham's family? Abraham's family is supposed to be holy and nice family, right? But then if you see Genesis, if you read Genesis and read stories of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, they are the worst dysfunctional family in the world. Can you imagine that? If these things happen in modern days, there will be like headline on the BBC News. But then from this family, out of this terrible dysfunctional family, Israelites was born. And in the end, out of which Jesus was born. This Abraham's family and Isaac's family and Jacob's family, this totally horrible and dysfunctional and terrible family, in the end produced Jesus. So I don't know what kind of family you are from, how well functional your family was, or how good your parents were to you. I'm not so sure, But then, if God can use Abraham's family, so that Savior of this world can be born out of this family, you guys can do anything. It doesn't matter whatever family you are from, how terrible and horrible your family is, used to be. It doesn't matter. Do you understand what I mean? Out of this family, God brought Jesus. Out of this family, David was born. Out of this family, Moses was born. So don't worry too much about your family background. If my teacher, he's like my father, Roland Evans, who started the World Horizons and Nations. He once told me that 90% of a missionary he trained, they were from broken family. 90% of missionary he trained. He sent out like 500 missionaries around the world. But then he said 90% of missionary he trained, they were from broken family. So if you are from the broken family, if you are from dysfunctional family, I can tell you that's good. You are from good family. We are from like Abraham's family. God has already kind of did his preparation in you. Because if you go out to the world and share gospel with people, or if you go to unreached area and speak to them about gospel, those people will respond to you. Those people who are broken, who have sorrow and pain in their lives, they will respond to your message. Do you understand what I mean? So anyway, that's that's kind of small encouragement I can give you in the beginning. Let's open Bible, Genesis chapter 25. Genesis chapter 25. I mean, family it begins with marriage, right? How many of you are not married yet? How many? Can you please put your hands up? So most of you are not married yet. Why are we running a family course here when you're not married yet?
That is why they are single. They need to learn.
Okay.
Once a family.
Okay. So let me tell you my marriage story then. How I got married to my wife. Me and my wife, we were on the same missionary training program, and we were very close because somehow my characteristic and her characteristic, somehow matches well. So we were very close. But then if someone is close to you, you may argue with her or with him a lot, And so I argued with her a lot of times, on my 1-year training program. We really argued a lot. And one day, we really argued, really like a terrible argument. I was like shouting at her and like pointing her out, and she was upset as well. But then both of us, we don't really carry this anger so long. So, once we argued or like had argument, then I would just come to her and say sorry. So the very next day, I went to her and I spoke to her like, we were sitting in this small kitchen. Anyway, so I told her like, I'm sorry, my anger burst out again. I couldn't kind of control myself. I'm sorry about this, and I said sorry to her. Then she said to me like, she had this deep like contemplation. Why am I argue with Jake so often? And she told me like, I found the reasons. And she said to me like, I like you. I love you. And when she said that, I was terrified because she wasn't someone that I would like. She wasn't like a sexy, beautiful girl. She was a bit short and bit, I don't want to say she was bad, but then she was a bit round anyway. So I didn't really like her. Sorry, don't be offended. I mean, my wife, I share this story a lot with Korean people anyway. So I didn't like her. I didn't like her as a woman. So I told her like, if someone you don't like you, and you have to refuse her or refuse him, then let me tell you how. You have to be religious. You have to be really, really religious. Okay. So what I told her, sister, you are like my sister in God. You are like my co-worker in God. I don't feel woman from you. We are like a family. You are my like a beloved sister. I can't feel woman from you. That's what I told her. So through being a religious man, I kind of refused her. I couldn't say like, you're not beautiful, that's why I don't like you. I couldn't say that. You're so ugly, so I don't like you. You're so fat, I don't like you. I couldn't say that, right? So I become religious. Sorry?
That's rude.
I know. That's why you guys are laughing. But anyway, so then my wife went to China. She went there as a missionary, and I stayed in the UK, and I was running a training program here. But then she didn't really email me and saying like, oh, I still like you, or let's meet together. She didn't do that. But because I from time to time I went to China and I met her there, and somehow I kind of still felt that she likes me. But then my leader told me that if you don't really like her, you have to express it clearly so that she wouldn't have a false hope in you. If she think there might be some kind of possibility, she may still like me, or like she may lose her opportunity to meet another guy. So I told her clearly, there's no future between us. Like I'm not gonna like you, we are not gonna marry. So just be on your way. But anyway, one day, it was like year 2004, January 3rd, I was going to France, but then I was on, we were driving to France, so I was getting on this minibus. But then from my center, one of this British ladies, she was like coming to me with a letter. She said like, "Oh, Jake, you got the letter." And before just get on this minibus, I got this letter and I opened it, and it was actually the letter was from United States. But then I realized that I know nobody from the States. But then when I opened it up, the letter was written by an American girl that I used to know. And I can't tell you all the details, but then while I was reading the letter, in deep down my heart, I knew that God is speaking to me something. And at least I believe that God spoke to me, "Jake, now is the time for you to pray about your marriage." Before that, I never felt like, I should pray about marriage or I should consider about marriage. I never thought like that. But then that moment I received this letter, God really spoke to me, "This is time for you to start praying for your marriage." So I went to France, and we have this big center in France. So for a month, I was there praying about my marriage. And during that time, God spoke to me through the story of Othniel. Do you know this guy, Othniel? Aksa. Oh, you know very well about Bible. Okay. Othniel is the guy who married to Aksa, who is Caleb's daughter. Okay. There's two stories of this marriage in the Bible. One in Joshua, one in Judges. And when Othniel got married to, firstly, Caleb was trying to conquer this land, and he said like, whoever conquered this land first, he's gonna be my son-in-law. So it was Othniel who actually conquered the land. So it was Othniel getting married to Caleb's daughter Aksa. But then before they get married, actually, Aksa asked his future husband, Othniel, to ask his father or her father to get the land. So Othniel asked the land, and Caleb gave it to him. But then on the wedding day, Aksa herself, she asked her father, "Father, give me this upper spring and lower spring." And Caleb actually gave this upper spring and lower spring to his daughter, Aksa. And I was meditating on this, and cut it short. God spoke to me this: "Jake, you are like a guy like Othniel. You are the guy who always claim the land. But the land without water is dead. It's dead. So you need a woman who can claim the springs of water." That was like my 1 month meditation in France. Then we finished our training in France and we came back. A week later, we had a conference. And then my wife was in China. She was the leader in China team. So she came to UK to join our conference. So we had a 1-week conference, and the final day, each one of us, we were sharing about our vision. So each person, this number of people. So each person came forward and they shared about their visions. And it was my wife's turn, and she was sharing about her visions. She was sharing about China because she was in China. But then suddenly, she started talking about Aksa. And she started talking about God promised her to give her this upper spring and lower spring. I was sitting there listening to her. Just a week ago, God spoke to me this, and I didn't say to anybody about my meditations. But then this girl, standing in front of me, speaking about Aksa and speaking about upper spring and lower spring, I was really terrified as I listened to her. But at that moment, I really felt like she might be the one. She might be the one. But then I wasn't there to speak to her about my meditation. 2 days later, she went back to China. But I couldn't say to her, like, I had this meditation. You said you're Aksa. I couldn't say that to her. But anyway, the conference was February, and sometime in March and April, I was actually meditating. And sometimes we are really religious. We having this thick religious cloth on us. We don't really understand who we are. We think we are good Christians. We are really spiritual. We're really nice Christians. But then sometimes God kind of strip us off from this cloth so that we can see, naked ourselves, really who we are, what kind of faith I have. And sometimes God does that through a question. And one day I was meditating and I asked myself these questions. Why I didn't like her? Why me, as a man, don't see her as a woman? Then I realized that, and this question changed a little bit. And I asked myself, if my wife, then she was my wife, if she was a little bit taller, looks a lot more beautiful and slimmer, then because she's my sister in the Lord, she's my co-worker in Christ, would I not feel woman from her? I realized that I would feel woman from her. If she's some kind of ideal kind of woman that I think, I like, I would have felt she's woman. I would have liked her. Do you understand what I mean? When I could answer the questions, God spoke to me this. If you find her womanness or whatever, if you consider her as a woman out of her appearance, out of what you see from her, then you are not worthy of following me, because I am image of God. When I heard that voice, my heart was broken. And I was training young people, shouting at them, follow image of God. Walk not by sight, not by might, but walk with the Holy Spirit. And not the things you see in this world, but things you don't see. Follow these things. I was kind of challenging and encouraging young people and training them like that. But then, when it comes to me, marriage, which is most important things in life, I was deciding it by what I see. I was deciding it by the appearance of woman. When I realized that, I felt really, really broken in me. And I knelt before God and I prayed, Lord, if this woman is really, you, the one you have prepared for me, give me this love that I can love her. Show me this love that I can like her. The next morning I woke up and I suddenly missed her. So I emailed her. Now I think I'm ready to go out with you. That was 2004 April. Then 2004 September I went to China. Then we started dating. And in 2005 May we got married. And now we have 5 kids, which is great fruits of our love. And I run training program in Korea, in the UK with Korean young people and some other nationalities. We seem very spiritual person, and you may think I'm very rude. But then what I realized is that, if in my team there are beautiful women, she would be the first one who finds boyfriend. Do you understand what I mean? She would be the first one who would marry to a nice guy. I realized that those people who are popular, handsome and tall, out there in the world, they would be popular and would be welcomed in the church too. Do you understand what I mean? Those people, spiritual Christian people, they also like tall people and handsome people. They like beautiful girls as well. Do you understand what I mean? So in the end, I realized that outwardly, like outward appearance, decide a lot of things in church, in spiritual world as well. In Turkey, we have a guy missionary, Korean guy who is disabled, and he doesn't look very nice. He's disabled guy, and he's very short. And at first sight you see him, you will understand he's not a normal guy. He's a disabled guy, and he still has a hope to get married. I really hope he can get married. But then realize that no one in my team, no girl in my team wants to get married to him. Can you understand what I'm saying? You may say I'm rude, but then that's the reality of Christian people and church as well. Okay, chapter 25, verse 22. So anyway, so in Korean church, it's like, if you want to get married as a young man and young woman, worldly people, when they get married, they see, their education background, their family background, their characteristics, and their job and their income. They do all these conditions. They see all these conditions, right? If someone in world, they get married to someone. They do things, love is okay, love is good. But then other condition is too, is important for them. For Christian people, when they get married, they see all these things as well. They see, how handsome they are, how good their family background, and are they Christians, and all these things. They see all these conditions. They consider all these conditions as well as faith. So I realized that Christian people getting married is harder because they have one more conditions: faith and belief. Anyway, that's what I realized anyway in Christian world. So if you see chapter 25, verse 22, the babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. So Rebecca, Isaac's wife, she got married, and there were two babies in her, twins. And Bible says they were jostling against each other. You know what it means by jostling. It's like pushing each other, pushing away each other. So they were like within mother's womb. Jacob and Esau, they were jostling against each other. And if you read Genesis, and if you want to understand about family, the whole book of Genesis is a story of families. Abraham's family, Isaac's family, Jacob's family. And as you read those books, there are whole family issues within the Genesis. Okay, there are favoritism, the brother competing against brothers, wives fighting each other, having a jealousies, brother hating each other, and mother loves one son and father loves one son, and there are like competition within the families and fighting against birthright, brother trying to kill brother, as I told you, all these family issues and hurting each other and blaming each other, all these family issues are there in Genesis. So if you want to understand family, read Genesis well, and you will understand a lot about family there, all the hurts and problems and issues in the family. Anyway, so two baby was born, but then in this family there was a problem because Jacob loved one and Rebecca loved the other. So Jacob loved, as we know, Isaac loved one. Isaac loved which one? Esau. And Rebecca loved Jacob, right? Because as you know, Esau was like hunter. And if you read Bible well, Isaac was also outdoor man. He was always outside meditating. Do you understand what I mean? So these two can go together. But then Jacob, if you read the Bible, Jacob says, Bible says Jacob stays among the tents. So he was like with mother all the time. So mother loves Jacob and father loves, Esau. So there were favoritism. Can you see that? There were favoritism. I have 4 sons, 1 daughter and 4 sons. And I do actually love one better than the other. It's really strange. I'm not so sure. If I have only 2, I may not be like that. But having 4 sons, I can't help, liking one better than the others. I'm not so sure it's just me, my problem. I don't know. I don't know exactly. But anyway, so they were like competing within mother's womb, and they were born. And as you know, firstborn was Esau, and Jacob wasn't a firstborn, but he wanted to have this birthright. So, as you know the story, Jacob was trying to deceive Esau and trying to buy this birthright and stuff like that. But then on the day of, Isaac was trying to bless, Esau as a firstborn. You know this story, right? Rebecca, she overheard. And she wanted her son Jacob wanted to be blessed, right? You know this story, right? So let's see what happens. Open Genesis chapter 27. Genesis chapter 27, verse 8. He says this, "Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you." This is what Rebecca said to his son Jacob. She wanted Jacob to be blessed, right? So she said listen carefully and do what I tell you. Have you ever heard this before in your own life? So many times, right? I'm a father, father of 5 kids. This is what I tell them all the time. Listen carefully and do what I tell you. As a father, as a mother, you tell your children, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Okay? So many times in your school, maybe teacher might say to you, maybe someone else, maybe this system might have said to you. But then in home, in your own house, your parents will say this a lot of times. Listen carefully. Listen and do what I tell you. Then let's see what she say. Then chapter 15. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also, verse 16, she also covered his hands and smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food, the bread she had made. And verse 18, he went to his father's and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn." This is what Rebekah, told him to do. Rebekah said to her son, "Listen carefully and do what I tell you." Then she brought someone else's clothes. Okay? It wasn't Jacob's clothes. It was Esau's clothes. And put this Esau's clothes on Jacob. Then she brought this goat skin, because Jacob wasn't hairy, but Esau was hairy. So she brought this goat skin and put it on Jacob. So she disguised her son Jacob into Esau. Okay? And Jacob went into father's chamber. And father asked him, "Who are you?" Then Jacob said, "I'm Jacob?" No, he didn't say that. He said, "I'm your firstborn, Esau." This is what Rebekah did to his son Jacob. Rebekah changed him into someone else. Rebekah put him in someone else's clothes. Rebekah asked him to say another name, not his own name. And what I see in family, the great tragedy in family is this. You're born as God created you to be. But then in every family, sometimes father's expectation, sometimes father's job or family job, well, many different things, change you into someone else. That happens in every single family. I went through that as well. When I was younger, I want to study history. I wanted to be a historian because I really liked reading books and stuff like that. I read a lot of books too. So one day I spoke to my father. Father, I want to be a historian. Then do you know what my father told me? He said to me this, son, being a historian means being poor. Man has to be engineer. Then I went to engineering university and studied civil engineering. I didn't know that was wrong clothes for me to wear. I didn't know. Once I joined my training program in the UK, I realized that was totally wrong decision. When I was working in China, I met this girl whose name is Yang Xu. I mean, you may not know her anyway. And she would come to my house and play with my kids all the time. She loves to play with kids. But then she was studying law. She was studying law at university. So one day I was speaking to her. I see you really like kids. And she told me like, oh, yeah, my dream used to be like being a kindergarten teacher. So I told her, then why are you studying law? But then she said to me, her mother was in university. Do you know Cultural Revolution in China? When those times, when Mao Zedong was in power, there was Cultural Revolution, and every university student, they were like sent out to country like a place, and they were like farming, and they couldn't study. Do you know what I mean? So her mother was studying the law, but then she couldn't study what she wanted to study. So she was like putting her own expectation on her daughters. You have to study law. That's how she decided to study law. Do you understand what I mean? And in my training program, a lot of pastors were missionary kids. They join our training program. Every year we have at least a few pastors were missionary son and daughters. When they join our training program, they share their pains. Being a pastor's son, do you know what it means in Korea? You have to be a good person. You shouldn't lose your father's face. That's why you behave yourself well. Listen to your father, and do something like that. So there's some kids. They were clothed with this cloth, which doesn't fit them, and children, they suffer within this cloth. What I realized as I train young people, the most painful things in the world is that you can't be who you are. You cannot express yourself. That is the most painful things you can experience in this world. That is the worst curse you can ever experience in this world. Do you understand what I mean? And when you cannot really speak for yourself, you cannot really be yourself. That is the most and the most horrible pain and curse in this world. Look at this. Rebecca, why did she clothe Jacob with Esau's clothes? Why? To bless him. Why did my father tells me like go and study engineering? Because he thinks this is blessing for my son. Do you understand what I mean? But was it blessing? No. After this accident, after this incident, what happened? Rebecca wanted to make him the head of his family. Being a firstborn son, great, right? But after this incident, what happened to Jacob? He was kicked out. He was expelled from his family. The reason Rebecca clothed him with Esau's clothes and disguised him as Esau, and Jacob went into his father's chamber and I'm Esau, was make him to be firstborn, the head of this family. But the result was Jacob was kicked out. He was kicked out of his family. But then, 20 years later, you know this story, right? 20 years later, Jacob was coming back. Jacob was coming back to his father's house. Let's open the Bible. Genesis chapter 32. Verse 24. Genesis chapter 32, verse 24. I will read, 24 and 25, 26. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" 20 years ago, Jacob was asked same question. 20 years ago, when he entered his father's chamber, Isaac was asking him, "Who are you? Who is it?" Then Jacob said, "I'm Esau." But 20 years later, God came to him, and he wrestled with Jacob. And when Jacob asked him, "Bless me," and God asked these questions, "What is your name?" I'm 100% sure Jacob would have remembered his past mistake. 20 years ago, his father asked him, "Who are you? What is your name?" He could not say, "I am Jacob." He could not say, "I am Jacob." But then when the second chance came to him, when God, the real father, asked him, "What is your name?" Then here, Jacob clearly said, "My name is Jacob. My name is Jacob." Then this is what God said. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. And if you read Exodus well, there is a verse like this. Israel is my firstborn. This is what God said to Moses. Israel is my firstborn. When did he become real firstborn? When he disguised as someone else? When he tried to be like firstborn? No. The name Jacob figuratively means a liar. You know that, right? Heel grabber. When he was born with Esau together, he was grabbing at Esau's heel. So his name is liar. Do you understand what I mean? But then when he accepted his real name, when he decided to be who he was, then God anointed him, changed his identity totally. That was real blessing. It's not about being a firstborn. It's about you becoming who you are. In New Testament, it's simple. We are not righteous. We become righteous, not we try to become righteous. But when we accept we are sinner, you become righteous. When Jacob accepted, I'm a liar, I'm Jacob, God put this new identity in him. No, you are Israel. Then, if you go Genesis chapter 33. Finally, Jacob meets Esau. If you see verse 4. Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. When they were in mother's womb together, they were jostling. They were pushing against each other. They're pushing. But then when Jacob accepted who he was, and when he met Esau, his older brother, Esau came and he embraced him. No more jostling. No more pushing against each other. But as a brother, they embraced each other. This is jostle, wrestle, embrace. We're born in this world, jostling. I have 4 kids, four sons, 1 daughter. They're always jostling. in my house, always fighting over toys, over mobile phone, over TV. You know, they're always arguing. You know, they're always jostling. You know, but then time will come. They will wrestle with God. They will meet with God. But then they will be able to embrace someone else. Embrace those people who used to compete against him. Embrace those people who used to jostle against him. So in your life, if you are still jostling with someone, maybe someone in your own family, maybe someone in your own church, maybe someone in your own life, wherever, your workplace or your school, you know, learn to wrestle with God. You know, then you will be able to embrace those people. So, as a parents, this is huge challenges. You know, sometimes it's not your own fault. You know, my daughter. And let me finish with my story, with my daughter's story. You know, my daughter may not like me to share this, but anyway, my daughter, she came to this country when she was 5, 6, and when we were in China, we were having this small kindergarten, and we had this, you know, few kids from missionary families, and my daughter was really someone has got leadership. She was in British expression, she was really bossy girl. So within this kindergarten, she would line up all the other kids and order them to do something. You do this, you do that. You know, she was doing that. But then when she came to UK, firstly, she didn't speak any English. So one day she came to me and saying to me, "Dad, why my hair is black? I want to have a blonde hair." He said, "In Wales, you know, we have still a lot of white people, not like in London here. You know, mostly they're white anyway." So I was shocked when she said to me like that. So I told her like, "Oh, black hair is good, much better than blonde." But then next day, because she had this friend, not really friend, but anyway, she has this schoolmate she admired, really tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, you know. Her name was Sasha Williams. And the very next day, she just told me like, "Oh, Dad, I want a blonde hair." The next day, she came to me from school, and she said to me like, "Oh, Dad, why my surname is Kim? I want to be a Williams." And I was really shocked when I heard that. I was really shocked. But then, you know, those kids, they try to be someone else all the time. You know, when they see something they think is good, they try to be someone like them. So sometimes it's not really, you know, parents' fault. This world is kind of systemized like that. Do you understand what I mean? When I went to Uganda last 2 years ago, I met this black teenager girls, and we were all, you know, Koreans, you know, Koreans, you know, ugly Koreans. But then these black African girls, so beautiful, you know, teenager girls, and they were coming to us and touching our skins, like touching our hairs. And they said to me, do you know what they said to me? "You look so beautiful. Oh, look at this hair. We're so ugly." I was shocked to hear those black African girls saying that. Who made them ugly? Who made them feel they're ugly? You know, beauty is just culture. But then out of this culture, our mind is formed. And we decide you are beautiful and you are not. And my daughter now, because she didn't speak any English and she couldn't be a boss in her classroom, she has to be submissive to her own friends, okay? If not, she couldn't make friends. So she couldn't make friends, she was always alone in a classroom. One day, this Chinese girl came to me and she said to me like, "Oh, you know, your daughter, you know, big problem, your daughter. She has no friends in school, no friends at all." So, you know, kids, they know how to survive. If once they were put in a new kind of context or environment, they know how to survive in this environment. So my daughter, who has a very strong leadership and who's very bossy, she decided to be very nice girl. Do you understand what I mean? So she decided to always smiling and listening to her, you know, friends, and if they ask her to do something, she will always do it. Do you understand what I mean? She changed herself like that. Then when she became like in first year in secondary school, she came to me, she said this, Daddy, I'm always smiling at school, but I'm not happy at all. I'm always smiling at school, but there's no joy in me. From that moment, she started making a lot of problems in school. She, one day I took her to school, but then I got a phone call from school, and the teacher said, your daughter didn't come to school. She was wandering around the school, didn't go to school. And she was crying all the time. Each time I'm sending her to school was a really, really horrible job for me. And one day, so I went to school with her, trying to find a solution, with her teacher. And we were sitting in this corridor, and there was like a girl, like a blonde and, makeups, and I could see she's like, maybe one of the top girls in the school. She was like shouting in the corridor and fighting against her, like a teacher. And she was shouting this school is stupid. She was shouting like that. She was really corridor, really, really loud voice. And me and my daughter were sitting there. And then do you know what my daughter said to me? She came to me like this. She came to my ear and she said to me this, Dad, I would like to do it as well. But then she didn't have courage to do it. She didn't have courage to do it. So in the end, I really could see, she couldn't be herself in this context, in this environment, with a lot of white girls. She wants to be a boss, but then she couldn't. She didn't speak good English. Her leadership would not be accepted in this white people society. Do you understand what I mean? And she was frustrated and discouraged. So in the end, she changed herself in order to survive there, in order to make friends there. Then in the end, she was really unhappy, So I kind of take her out from school for a year. And I sent her to school again. So she started school this time. And she's really better than before, but because she's still really trying really hard. But then why she was hurt? Why she couldn't be herself? Because I'm a missionary. I brought her here. My obedience made her really miserable in some sense. When I was kind of troubling myself with these ideas, I remembered, Abraham and Isaac. Abraham offered Isaac on the mountain of Moriah. He nearly killed him, right? He was then, God grabbed his hands, right? That's okay. Now I know you fear me, right? And God really blessed Abraham. And after that, there's no stories behind. What do you think about Isaac? How do you feel? Would we, his relationship with his father, would it be the same after that accident, like before? Remember, imagine your own father tried to kill you because God told him to do. Oh, my father is great. He tried to kill me because God told him to do. Fantastic. My father is a great man of God. I totally agree with him. He did a great job. Would you be like that? I don't think so. Although the Bible didn't explain afterwards that it's accident, I'm so sure Isaac was so hurt. And I can prove that. How can you prove that? Because, Abraham trying to kill Isaac on the mountain Moriah, it is the picture of Jesus dying on the cross. Do you agree? Do you agree? It was picture. Yeah. It was like shadow of Jesus dying on the cross. And do you remember what Jesus said on the cross? He said this, my God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus was hurt by his own father. Was Roman soldier trying to kill him? No! It was God himself killing Jesus on the cross. Do you understand that? It was a human being. It was God who was trying to kill his own son on the cross. And Jesus was so deeply hurt and wounded. I'm so sure Isaac was wounded by the action of his father trying to kill him. on the mountain Moriah. I'm so sure about that. Isaac was hurt. Why? Because Abraham obeyed God. Let me tell you, sometimes when you obey God, your kids will be hurt. Sometimes when you obey God and follow Him, your kids, your own children will get hurt. But then, don't stop there. Continue. As a trainer, as I train young people, I realize that getting hurt is good. When you get hurt, you have two options. If do you know how to bulk up your body? Making muscles. Through exercise, through workout, you tear down your muscles. And those gaps you fill with protein, then your muscle get bigger. That's the principle of your body making bigger. Do you understand what I mean? Same principle applies spiritually. The way you can build up your heart, make it bigger, is only through getting hurt. As you get hurt, God, your heart will be toned down. But then with the forgiveness, with your love, if you fill it up, you will realize your heart gets much bigger. That is principle. So when you get hurt, you can be better. You can be better through forgiving, through accepting. You can be a better person. But then sometimes you can be really bitter. If you can't forgive, if you can't accept, within your own family, within your relationship with the father and your mother and your whatever relationship you have, then you will be very, very bitter persons. I have seen so many Christian workers, missionaries as well, who has really, really have become bitter because they could not forgive. So guys, family has always greater issue than a single person. But then, once Native American said this, a man is nothing, but a man with a family is something. So with your family, you are something. That's really true in physical sense. But then it is really true with the spiritual sense as well. A man is nothing, but a man with family of God, is really, really something. So be happy with your families. If you are hurt from your fathers, your mothers, your brothers, do forgive them so that you can be a better person. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Gracias.